And it's time now for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. And Al, as it is a short week for us here at Market Journal, we'd like to know what you're keeping an eye on as we get ready for the Thanksgiving holiday.
Well, Bill, since we're taping before the holidays because of the university shutdown, I thought this would be the best time to give an update on what we might think is going to occur with the winter forecast. Seems that we've seen quite a bit of changes in the atmosphere since the NOAA released their initial forecast back in the month of October. That being said, just a quick short look at the weather outlook as we've seen it during the taping. It doesn't look like we're going to see any significant weather across Nebraska, at least till we get to later next weekend. We do have a couple troughs moving through. Of course, we had one moving through the day before Thanksgiving, and then of course we've got another one that might be moving through as we go through this afternoon, evening. That's just going to deflect across to most of northeastern Nebraska, and then there's another little wave that'll come through on Wednesday. Between that, we're going to see very warm temperatures as the ridge builds back in. So overall, we can't complain for this next week. But more importantly, we're more worried about what the weather conditions are. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the difference between this fall and last fall. This is basically the precipitation over the last 90 days. You can see that much of the upper Midwest has seen a wet trend and a very dry trend to our south. Let's compare this to last year when we've seen a little bit of moisture down to our south, very dry conditions, which was the start of a major drought in the Dakotas. So there is some significant differences already between the two fall periods. More importantly, we do have a La Nina event going on in the equatorial Pacific. The main area below normal sea surface temperatures pointing out that phenomena sits here over the equatorial region. Plus we have the Gulf of Alaska, very cold conditions as the upper air low has been parked pretty much in this region and been bringing much in the way of storminess to Alaska. Notice that the ice content is slipping down. We're seeing more Arctic ice formation in the western portion of the basin than we've seen since 2012. So we're going to have more cold air up in Alaska, and they've been dealing with some very brutal conditions. So any low pressure systems that are able to dig down the western U.S. coast are going to be able to tap that Arctic air, and those are the ones that we worry about with major storm systems as they move into the center part of the country. If they come in and move in an easterly fashion across the northern plains, generally those troughs will start to intensify once they get east of the mountains. That brings in those Arctic clippers into our region, taps that eastern U.S. trough, and most of the cold air lies from eastern Nebraska toward the east coast. Now, in terms of the length of this event, underneath the surface of the equatorial region, we got this cold pocket moving up the surface, and it looks like we're starting to see warming behind it. So this last push looks like it's going to take about 30 to 45 days, and then we'll start to see this warmth coming in behind them, and that's the reason why CPC is indicating that as we go the second half of the winter, we will start to see this event die down. That being said, here's a projection from all the global models. What we're looking at is a 0.5 line. Once we cross above this, we go into neutral conditions, and once we move across the 0 line, we have more El Nino-like conditions. So as we go to the late spring or late winter into early spring and we cross over, we're likely to see more of the southern jet become an influence. That means that we may see a return to some moisture across the southern plains, and that might be relief for western Nebraska as we get storms situated in the upslope flow. Generally, those occur during the months of March and April. So overall, I expect to see occasional bouts of severe storms activity across the central United States. And the most active period most likely will be when we see one of these atmospheric river events set up over the western United States, where the low pressure systems themselves bring that storm track into northern California. Those are the systems that we've seen during the late October period that brought good moisture to eastern Nebraska at the expense of central Nebraska. And with the deficits that we've had so far this fall in central Nebraska and southwest Nebraska, if we wanted to make all that precipitation up there in this winter period because of such a poor subsoil moisture recharge during the fall, it's going to require 150 to almost 200% of normal, depending on the location, of winter snowfall. I don't think we want to see that much, but we would like to see a semblance of normal precipitation so that as we go into spring, we have the opportunity to make up those moisture deficits. So overall, it looks like we're going to see more of a typical winter and maybe more cold air at the beginning of the winter than we've seen last winter, but overall, expect to see an occasional snowstorm just like we always do in Nebraska.